This is video 1.6. So in the last video we saw that having gained a deep understanding of the nature and characteristics of each of the 5 forces at work within an industry, we can then start thinking about the types of strategies that we can use to address those forces and thereby improve profitability. And in relation to this, I mentioned that there is a list of predefined strategies which have in fact been assembled by leading academics and strategic thinkers that we can select from, which correspond to each of the 5 industry forces and that have been specifically designed to combat those 5 forces in order to improve profitability. And this is something we'll have a look at in much more depth in Module 2. However, we will also see in Module 2 that any strategy that we want to employ to address the forces at work within an industry will have to be based upon an internal layer properly equipped to execute that strategy. Otherwise, the strategy is nothing more than some kind of trick shot or marketing slogan which is indefensible against the competition and transparent to the customers. So in Module 2, we're going to focus on the internal layer. And in looking at this, we're going to go through the following 3 steps. So first of all, we're going to look at how to draw something called a strategy canvas. And this is derived from something else called blue ocean strategy. And this will be step 2. So step 1, of course, was our Porter's 5 forces analysis. Step 2 will be drawing a strategy canvas. Then we'll be ready to consider how we go about selecting strategies from the predefined lists. So strategy selection will be step 3. And then finally, for Module 2, we'll look at these things called key asset maps and functional strategies. So this is where we will consider how we go about putting the key assets in place in order to execute the strategies that we have selected. And this will be step 4. And by the end of Module 2, we'll understand why we must carry out an internal analysis in this order and why we need to understand the industry layer before then looking internally in any kind of meaningful way. In total, there are 7 videos in Module 2 where we will explain each of these 3 steps in quite some depth. We will also apply these concepts to some case studies, as well as looking at how we can classify the assets within a business. In addition, Worksheet 2 will help you learn how to apply all of these concepts to your business. So exercise 1 on Worksheet 2 will help you learn how to draw a strategy canvas for your business. Exercise 2 on Worksheet 2 is where we set out the predefined lists of strategies that you can select from to address the industry forces. And exercise 3 on Worksheet 2 will help you to consider how to put the key assets in place in order to execute the strategies that you have selected. Then, having completed our look at the internal layer in Module 2, in Module 3 we're going to focus on the general layer. And in relation to this, we're going to go through a further 3 steps. So first of all, we're going to look at how we can interpret changes within the general layer from a strategic perspective. And this will be overall step 5. However, this step is actually split into 2 parts. So first of all, we're going to look at something called the Future 5 Forces model, and this will be step 5, part 1. And then we're going to look at something called the Future Brand Identity model, and this will be step 5, part 2. Then we'll be ready to consider how we can respond to changes within the general layer so that we can build for the future. And in relation to this, we're going to look at something called the resource-based view of change. And this will be step 6. And then finally, for Module 3, we'll look at corporate strategy and a framework called the sweet spot of opportunity. And this will be step 7. And by the end of Module 3, we'll understand why we must carry out a general analysis in this order and why we need to understand the internal layer before then determining how we can respond to changes within the general layer. In total, there are 7 videos in Module 3 where we will explain each of these 3 steps in quite some depth. In addition, Worksheet 3 will help you learn how to apply all of these concepts to your business. So, having now completed our look at the industry layer in this Module 1, in order for you to gain access to Module 2, where we'll look at the internal layer, and Module 3, where we'll look at the general layer, you'll need to join Stratology. And you can do that by clicking on the Join Login tab at the top of the stratology.com website. By joining Stratology, not only will you gain access to all the videos in Module 2 and Module 3, but also all of the related recommended reading lists and all of the worksheets. So Worksheet 1, Worksheet 2, and Worksheet 3. All of which will give you a structured, orderly, and truly scientific means of developing strategy. Of course, you could gain access to the frameworks and methodologies covered on this course by completing a Masters in Business Administration course, otherwise known as an MBA. But the only problem with that is that MBAs cost an absolute fortune, with most leading business schools now charging between £40,000 and £50,000 for their MBAs, and this combined with the fact they usually take between 1 and 2 years to complete, means it's not all that surprising that most individuals do not want to make this kind of financial commitment or commitment in time. But that doesn't mean they shouldn't still be allowed to learn the key principles, the ones that really are relevant to their work and that genuinely do fill any gaps in their knowledge. So that's what we're going to provide you with on this course, an understanding of the core strategic models, tools, skills and concepts that lie at the heart of an MBA course, all taught in a step-by-step manner that's easy to understand and use, and on a course that requires no previous business knowledge, experience or qualifications, and for a price equivalent to that of a book, an album or a DVD, highlighting our mission to democratize the core MBA concepts and open them up to a wide audience. Finally, because all of these concepts are taught in these bite-sized videos, it means that any individual, no matter how busy they are, can still learn the core strategic MBA concepts by watching these videos in their own time, whenever is convenient, as often as they like, and thereby build this course around a busy schedule. So please now join Stratology and then click on video 2.1, where we will start to look at the internal layer.